we were talking to one musical icon. It's time right now to talk about another, because a new book, Renegade of Thin Lizzy, tells the story of the one and only Philip Lynott. It's been written by Byrne. He joins me on the line now. Alan, how are you keeping?
I'm very well. And yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. I've enjoyed the bits of the book that I've read so far. I also really enjoy the cover, a very striking image of what a man, I suppose, who is an icon in his own right. But tell us about that first of all, because I know you're very pleased with it.
Yeah, well, I had interviewed Jim Fitzpatrick, who is responsible for the cover, and I suppose over the course of the research, I'd kind of got to talking, and we had tried to do something, shall we say, from his canon. Okay. To tie in with the fact, obviously, that he was responsible for so many of the Lizzy album sleeves, and be it for albums, even personal stuff that was commissioned. So I thought to try and tie it in, we'd work on something, and it was an image that was used once for some promotional campaign, I think about 1981 or 82. And but it hasn't been seen since, so I thought it was quite striking. Yeah, it's a great picture. It's just a kind of, you can only see one, it's a drawing, I suppose, but it's one eye of Phil that you can see as he stares at you in the way that only he could. And of course that's Jim Fitzpatrick with his strong Clare connections, and the photo he took of Che Guevara in Kilkee all those years ago. Now, there's lots of great stories about Thin Lizzy in the book, and I'll get to a couple of them in a second, but do you think, as a band, as a group, and as a man that Phil Lynott was, are they respected enough? Do they get remembered enough in the Irish music scene? Well, certainly I think they do in terms of the Irish music scene. The UK music press actually are quite instrumental in bringing them back on a commercial kind of ground, certainly in the last 6 or 7 years. Okay. Like classic rock over in the UK have run numerous cover features, and they've done their part. But of course over here as well, you've had the exhibition that was set up by Hot Press. So there's always people kind of rediscovering Phil and Lizzy and everything like that. And it's just a generational kind of thing, I think. And you have a statue in Dublin as well, of course, which is absolutely. People will be very familiar with too. What in particular, though, has drawn you to Phil Lynott and to Thin Lizzy? Why did you decide to write about him? Well, about I'd say maybe going back about 14 or 15 years, I'd just written up some articles that were, again, due for submission to a variety of music mags. The article kind of grew, and that kind of snowballed into what became my first book, which is Thin Lizzy, Soldiers of Fortune. And that came out about 2004, somewhere around there. Okay. So there was X amount I couldn't actually do with Soldiers of Fortune in terms of the solo work, because then we would have been going into what all the other band members were up to, and there just wasn't enough kind of space for that kind of book. So it is as a result really of everything I couldn't do with the last one, and just to try and get it to hang together, because in effect, Phil didn't really have a clear-cut solo career, but the main focus of this book is just to use, shall we say, stepping stones from the Lizzy history, and then to take the story off in a different direction when Phil was working on War of the Worlds or anything like that. And I suppose his untimely death robbed us of what would have been, well, goodness only knows what that career could have been. Exactly, because, I mean, that's even, I've kind of gone into a bit of that, because there was a load of projects that were proposed. Some of the bits and pieces, there were quite a few bits and pieces finished, but there were so many other things that were, they were only demoed, or, they were maybe pub lunch kind of chats, anything like that. So there was quite a lot unfinished. Yes. And like I said, some of that is covered with, what's his name, Junior Giscombe. Phil had done a few tracks with him, very kind of soul and R&B stuff of their time. So there's, again, you'll find a lot of those tracks actually up on YouTube. Yeah. But, finally, Alan, I suppose before I let you go, I mean, the one thing that always struck me about Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy, but particular Phil, obviously, was very enigmatic, very charismatic, very many layers to his personality and to his public persona and his private side. If I was to challenge you to give me one story which I suppose summed him up as a musician, as a person, is there anything that would come to mind? I always kind of look at, the way I think about it is, The Boys Are Back in Town. That was written late 75 and early 76, and it came out in 76.
Yeah.
That was written when he was 26 or thereabouts. I think it's a very powerful kind of song, and he was just at the right age, I think, to write that type of song. But if you want to take it into the solo arena, I think Old Town is, I think that sums him up, because he was always very cute. He wasn't writing in the first person. He was always kind of a lot more. There was a lot more depth, I think, to what he was doing, rather than a lot of his contemporaries. And I think perhaps that's why people continue to kind of rediscover him and enjoy him. You know.
Alan Byrne, the book is Philip Lynott, Renegade of Thin Lizzy. It's published by Mentor Books, and it's available in all good bookshops, I'm sure. And thank you very much for joining us and telling us about it today.
Gavin, thanks a million.
Cheers,
Take
no
care.
problem at all. Alan Byrne there.